excited about this opportunity to share what we've been doing over the last 4.5 years. This is an amazing panel that is here with me, and I'm so thankful for all of their support and continuing conversation with Tony Mobley.
I'm happy to get an opportunity to talk a little bit about this show and about the wonderful help that we've gotten over the years from office hours and about the kinds of things we talk about on conversations with Tony Mobley and the intentions that we have.
And he is not alone. Some of the other behind the scenes people you may not know include our question manager, Laura Thompson. Laura, welcome.
Thank you. Yes. It's a little different than doing the daily show, but still very familiar for me as I spend a lot of time at the question position in the daily show as well.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, if you haven't looked at the crawling credits, you don't know how many of the people that you're meeting tonight a little more in depth have been around in the trenches making this all happen for such a long time. And one of the people who definitely follows into that category is the person you're going to meet next. He brings a remarkable level of professionalism to what happens on all of our shows, including Conversations with Tony Mobley, and that is his show consultant, Guy Cox.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I just got to say from the Office Hours tribe, we have this mantra of a global conversation where no one's left out. And gosh, looking at it, Tony took that torch and ran with it. I mean, he named a show, did 100+ episodes. So congrats to you, Tony. Thanks for being the lead, taking the lead and running and having all this support. It's amazing.
I think the people who watch the regular show know how much time and effort all the people you're seeing on your screen have put in. And it's not just the main show. The main show has been remarkably stable and consistent. And when Alex started it, part of that was doing it every day. And part of doing it every day, if you have things that you're not quite sure they're going to work right, you move them over to a show like Tony's show, and you can try new things kind of outside the glare of the daily show that kept going on over and over and over again. And the number of things I imagine that has gotten worked out over time that made office hours stronger, a lot of that was the seed bed that has been Conversations with Tony Mobley. So that's in part why this is such an old friends group. I'm going to start with the first question to you, Tony. You've been at this for nearly 5 years now. Did you ever expect it to go as far and form the heart of a dedicated volunteer community like you've been able to work with?
Absolutely not. This was, part of the thing with office hours is that we're always doing labs. The old idea of doing laboratories and Guy and Clarlock know in particular that Conversations with Tony Mobley really started out as an effort to help a politician who was making a decision that he wanted to try to go after the Barack Obama method of using social media and engagement with others. And I reached out to Alex Lindsay and good friends in the office hours community and say, hey, we want to help this guy get elected. It was a statewide opportunity for election in the state of Georgia. And the gentleman was extremely interested, and although the community is not really sort of leaning into politics, Alex at the time thought this was a good opportunity to create a lab in the way in which we can help somebody get elected. Unfortunately, after I had reached out to the office hours community and grabbed a whole lot of people to help in this effort, the politician decided that he was going to go the traditional route. And unfortunately for him, he did not do very well. So his decision not to, I think it would have been a fantastic thing if we had been able to do that. I think he might have even had a real good chance of winning the statewide election. And so Clalock and Guy and Chris Fenwick and Aaron Husledge and Dr. Chris Clark and so many other people that I can't even name right now, said, well, you got all these people together. Maybe you need to do something. And then the other piece to it was that I have 6 other siblings. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we would meet every Sunday at 7. We still are meeting. And I was boring them to tears with telling them about this community that I was a part of and all of the wonderful things we were doing and how you could look so good on camera. And they said, you need to share that with somebody else because we're tired of hearing about it. And so all of that came together, and we came up with Conversation with Tony Mobley. And I want to be clear about one thing, Bill, before I go any further. This really was an effort to make sure that regular people had an opportunity during the pandemic to have an idea of how they could possibly look good on camera and how they could, be very presentable and not just be good enough. And it was just amazing opportunity because, the other piece to it was the reason that I was so engaged in office hours was that I was helping a church, Miracle Bible Way Church, Macon, Georgia, Pastor Patsy L. Willis, 96 years old. And they needed a way to be able to engage in the during the pandemic. And so we created a virtual service. And so I was in office hours asking so many questions. And I was asking those questions that, a non-professional would ask. And so Mike Andrews was very kind to me in the early days when I looked awful. And I was like, I don't want to be here because I was looking so bad. And he encouraged me along with a lot of other individuals in the office hours community.
That was always one of our marching orders in the early days. We knew as the pandemic developed how important this kind of telepresence was going to be. I think we got there way ahead of a lot of people who didn't understand how much people would be depending on things like Zoom. And so we used to always proselytize about that over and over again. And it's just been a fabulous community ever since. There's so many people involved here, and I don't want to waste too much time up here. We are going to get to your questions and answers, by the way. This is always a Q&A show, so let me toss up the QR code for those of you who might have a question for Tony or for Tlaloc or Guy or Laura, any part of the operation, how Office Hours has managed to support shows like Conversations with Tony Mobley. And if you're interested in doing a show like Conversations with Tony Mobley, this is the great place to get your questions answered. So use that QR code, put your questions into the system, and we will get to them as we go through. I'm going to go around the panel now, and I see Guy raised his hand, so I'm going to toss it to Guy. Guy, do you have some thoughts on what Tony's been talking about?
Yeah, I just wrote this down while we were sitting there chatting. We amplify voices, and it's kind of interesting to think that, YouTube just really did that. They put this platform out there for us to step onto for free, and we're able to take a voice, even though this politician one didn't work out. But we could have, talked about relevant things in that community that are going on and gone viral. So it's one of those things where you don't know until you do, and unfortunately, that one they didn't do. But I look at what you did manage to do unintentionally, Tony, which was Taylor Sunderhouse is a great example of somebody who you inadvertently helped their career just by starting something and having the courage to step up and do something. He went from a guy that had, I'm not sure what his previous role was, but it was a low man on the totem pole, and now he's risen up in his career dramatically because he learned vMix. He took on what Jeff was showing him with VisVector. So he's developed all these skills because of a show. He had a dojo to play in, and that's one of the great things about this community is that we have these tools, and we just needed some kind of talent to walk in and give us a platform to step onto and have a conversation. So it's amazing to see what you've done.
leads to opportunity. I don't think we realized how much change the world was going to go into back 5 years ago when the pandemic hit and everybody was displaced out of their normal processes. But this is one of the things that came out of that, this idea that telepresence and your connection with other people were going to be largely virtual, and that the people who learned how to do that, and we're still going through that process, right? AI is still floating in. There's got all these things that you need to keep up with and learn about. And it's places like office hours where people have been able to learn in a platform that is essentially free to use if you want to come in and volunteer for it. Laura Thompson, talk to us. What's your experience been like?
One of the other things I wanted to mention is there's a key player on the team who has not been mentioned tonight, and that would be Zachary Sorensen, who from Queensland, Australia, who comes in and TDs a lot. And he's such a great person, just kind of work along. I've learned so much from him. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about maybe Talaluk or Guy can talk a little bit more about the technical side of how that works. But I just wanted to say that, we're usually a small team on any given night, but there are always Tamara's come in and helped, JJ, Mickey. We're large in number, but usually few at one point. And it's such an amazing thing to log on a Wednesday night and just know that the show's gonna happen, and we're all gonna come together and things are gonna get done.
A little bird in my ear said that during Tlaluk's introduction, we had a little bit of a glitch or something like that. For those of you who don't know, Tlaluk is one of the people who were out front with Tony, helping him so much get things going. And Tlaluk, how are you doing tonight?
I'm just happy to be here and to talk a little bit about conversations with Tony Mobley. When early on, when Tony was looking at possibly working with the politician that he mentioned, he was wanting to do that for this person. And I looked at the state of politics in the world, and I said, well, if you're going to do that, you got to charge him. So and
so many hours of volunteerism. The family gets mad at you if you're giving away all your time. I get it.
And I think the guy was really excited about doing this project if it was going to be completely free. And I didn't think that was okay. So
you were giving him a realistic look at politics. Everybody wants to do everything. Sure, give me hundreds of hours if I don't have to pay for any of them.
And I don't want to put any words in that gentleman's mouth. I don't know the reasons, but he did move on to the other way. And there were some discussions in after hours, and there were some other discussions, including with Chris Fenwick, who Chris Fenwick said at one point to Tony, I think they were talking about Chris Fenwick's third rail idea, and a couple other things, and it just sort of swirled around, and it even kind of got to the point where Chris was like, I think I have completely different politics than you, but you should do a show, Tony. And and Tony said, what? And then people got excited about building a vMix instance in the cloud, and we put together a really beautiful looking show, pretty much right out of the gate. And then there was a couple of 4K shows that came in, and then one of the things that we had to start to figure out is this going to be something we do for a couple of times and as an experiment, and then stop? But Tony had the wherewithal and the gumption and the stick-to-itness to keep going and to keep pulling guests and to keep wanting to talk about things that are important to him and those that he has found to talk to. So I find it to be really great.
No one should underestimate how much effort it took on Tony's part and on the crew and everybody else's part. I mean, yes, it was the pandemic. Yes, we kind of got an idea that this thing called AWS was up there, and that getting access to being able to put a camera in front of you and actually speak to the world, which at this point was maybe a few dozen people, then grew into a few hundred over the course of a pretty significant period of time. That was going to be important. And looking back from the perspective of 5 years, I know it changed my life a whole lot in terms of what I decided was going to be valuable to spend time learning how to do. And I think there's a ton of people out there. We keep hearing these stories about people who got into the office hour system early, that they had particular technical skills or they picked up particular technical skills, and the next thing you know, they're out there doing local production, local web production. They understand at least the basics of how to deal with a big behemoth like AWS or one of the other content distribution networks. And this is really kind of the rebuilding of like the old broadcast system. The broadcast system's still there, but that was something where if you didn't have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions probably, you couldn't really play in broadcast even in the earliest years. It was so expensive to get into. And this is entirely the difference, because with a pretty modest investment and personal skills, you can put yourself on the web and learn some stuff. Guy, you wanted to talk a little bit about that? Or something else?
I really got to say hats off to Jonas for taking that initial football and saying, let's spin it up with vMix in the cloud. And so that was a blessing to him because he learned a lot. And then we got the bill. We had Aaron Husledge behind the scenes who had some AWS credits, helped out. I don't remember who else helped with some AWS credits, but Aaron wound up going into overtime and he wound up having to have some issues sorted later because it got over the top expensive. But it lets you know that the cloud's up there using other people's hardware, but at some point you got to go, is it better just to own it? And so big props to Oliver from Boink Software, who I believe supplied a free license, and then a Mac Mini, which, $500? And you could run up a $300 bill. That's about what we pay for our AWS to run extra hours when it's running on Viz. So you could run up a pretty fat bill pretty quick, where you could just buy the hardware and be done with it in 1 month. It would pay for itself, or 2 months. It would pay for itself. So something to think about as we talk about building this infrastructure out. And big hats off to Mickey. I know Mickey's just done so much with the audio, and
unbelievable talent.
Kicked in. Didn't Hasmik kick in some ears for you too, or a mic or something?
Yes,
Tony? There's so many
yes, he
people in the
did.
community that stepped up. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it really was the spirit that Alex fostered here. We were all a little bit out of our depth. I think everybody was a little bit out of our depth in one area or another. Some of us had broadcast experience and the rest of that, but we'd never done anything quite like this. We'd usually worked for a station where there was engineering teams behind there, and there was a transmitter there that we knew nothing about. And everything here, we got to watch and talk to the people who were actually doing it kind of day by day. It was fun. Talaluk, you want to get back in and talk about it a little bit more?
Yeah, I just want to say it's not just one Mac Mini. I wouldn't want people to think that there's an M4 Mac Mini and 2 M1 Mac Minis that run the show, but they're all in Tony's studio, and we try to utilize each of those machines for a particular thing so that we're not overloading any particular machine. So Tony is on a Mac Mini, and then the M4 runs mimoLive plus some the panel Unity's COM ingest, and then Mac Mini 2 does program feed, and or I might have that backwards. I probably do. And also it's where the TD controls the mimoLive, so that way an EIC can be in mimoLive fixing something, and the TD can still continue to control from the other machine.
I know it still seems a little bit complicated for people who don't go in, but remember, this used to take, $500,000 worth of investment to put a radio or TV station kind of on the air minimum. And that was for a tiny one somewhere in a small market. And a lot of us are essentially broadcasting out of spare rooms in our house or something like this into a system that does require some costs and maintenance, no two ways about it. But the fact that we can do this kind of thing, look good and sound good, and be a voice out into the world from a spare room in the house is pretty transformative. And so we've all been fascinated with this process. And part of the reason we're here and we're talking about it tonight is so you can meet some of the people behind the scenes who are helping to pull this together for us, who have learned the lessons, and now we come in to try to share them with as many people as we can so more people know about it. We're about to go into our questions, but I wanted to get to Guy first. Guy?
Yeah, and in just one other aspect where I see Tony using his infrastructure is for his Miracle Way Bible Church, and he sent me links to view that, and I just go, wow, he sounds so good, and I see all the other people in there, and they're just normal people that have just normal setups, and Tony looks good, sounds good, and he's taken more seriously because it's just effective communication. When you look good, you sound good, people take you more seriously. So that's something we could all learn from Tony, even though he's gone from just the Polson. What was the first mic you had? The $10 mic.
Yeah, we had a couple of those little boom mics.
$9.99.
Right.
$9.99 microphone.
Well, that was in the early days of office hours, when part of what we were trying to do was help teachers teach from home when everything shut down, and they didn't have any money at all. So a $5 or a $10 microphone was about what we could afford to get in their hands to do this kind of thing. That was a lot of fun.
The funny thing about it is that when I got that $9.99 microphone because of office hours, $30.
Yeah, there was a little supply and demand. We might have caused a little run on those. Let's get to our first question. We've got a lot of questions here, and I'm going to read them out. Roz McNulty is in from Vancouver, Canada, and Tlalok's going to handle this one. She says, what's the most challenging aspect of putting your studio and show together? So Tlalok, and maybe if Tony, you want to weigh in after he finishes, but go ahead, Tlalok.
So I think that the challenges, they evolve just like everything else. Early on, there was some challenges regarding just getting Tony's setup working in a way that was really kind of clean for the show, and then there was some other challenges regarding getting panelists. I mean, it depends on, or getting guests. It just depends on the day, really. And as the different platforms shifted, I think we did webinar first, and then we went for a couple of shows was just straight webinar out to YouTube with the Zoom encoders. And then we got the awesome vMix in the cloud excitement, and there was challenges there too, because once we built that and it looked really, really good, and then we went to 4K. And then I didn't want to leave 4K. And then everyone who was helping us with that was like, well, why?
That's the problem. We get it to a place where it looks really good and we don't want to go back.
Yeah. It's like, why are you being entitled? Like, you had a 4K show with Alex Lindsay. So what else do you want? And I was like, well, I want 4K every night. But so there was some challenges there, and just learning to communicate with everyone that was helping us and making sure that I wasn't, being too ASCII. And then there was a challenge of too much expenditure when it came to being in the cloud. And then so we shifted over and
Video Ninja. We went
and Video Ninja. I forgot about that. That was a challenge. That was a huge challenge. I mean, I think it can be a good service, but it's really hard. And one of the things that Tony and all the guests are super used to, of course, is Zoom, and just being able to come into a Zoom meeting in the way that you're used to, and come in and talk and work and feel comfortable. And I think it's really important for people to feel comfortable when they're on a show like this, when they're in a discussion like this, and as Tony so brilliantly puts it, in a conversation. And then building out the mimoLive and learning mimoLive and getting a whole new kind of vocabulary in my brain about that, and Oliver specifically helped us build that out. And then I started making changes and adjustments, and then Zach, our illustrious sort of more recent constant TD, he asked to change things about how it's controlled, and so that they can, and he built things out further than I could. And then one day I think I had just run over my sunglasses at the gas station, and there was a battery. I needed a new battery in the car, and I wasn't going to be able to make it back to be ready for conversations with Tony Mobley. So we called in JJ, and then we called in Mickey, and I think Mickey said, well, this is fun. And so then he started adjusting how we do things completely, and it did it much better. And that taught me a huge amount of things. So the challenges are they they continue in different ways, and I think that's kind of part of the fun.
Yeah, one thing that's been a constant through my experience in the show is the generosity of spirit that everybody brings to it. When you told that little anecdote about Mickey going, "Yeah, this is interesting, I'll help." We've seen so many people with so many skills just do the same thing. Raise your hand and say, well, I can help with that for a little bit. Let's get in there. I wanted to ask you, Tony, we're talking somewhat about the back end stuff, the technology and the rest of that. As a host, what's the most challenging aspect that you've found in terms of being up front in conversations with Tony Mobley? What are the big lessons that you've come away with?
I think the most important thing is something that I gleaned from Alex Lindsay, in that you have to understand that you are there to make sure that the audience is honored in the conversation. And what I mean by that is that the audience is engaged in the conversation that you're having. The other thing that is important to me is that whoever my guest is, that they understand that I am engaged with them and a participant in the conversation. It's really not an interview. It's really more of what we do is a conversation. We talk about what they're doing, and we wanted to make sure that when we're talking about what they're doing, that those who are listening feel a part of the conversation. And that is something that I continue to work on every day in terms of what I'm doing in terms of the conversation. And because and this is the thing, and is sort of in the mission statement that I have on YouTube, that regardless to who we are and the things that separate us, the most important thing that we can do is have a conversation. We don't have to agree. But the problem, I think, comes in the world where people don't talk. I line up on my side, you line up on your side, and we just stand apart. But if we can have a conversation, we may be able to find a common place where we can engage in a conversation. And maybe that's that's what we need to do more of, have conversations.
That sounds like a perfect lead into Peter Sargent's question. It's coming up next. And Peter wonders, what was the driving force behind your vision for your show? Is it just what you just articulated, or was there more?
Well, it initially was about making sure, and I'll be transparent and say that my wife doesn't like me saying that word, but I usually say transparent because I'm sharing something that I probably didn't intend to share. Um, it was important for me that when I looked at office hours, these high-end professionals were having conversations about this whole thing of video and how great the potential for it was. And I just thought, wouldn't this be powerful for regular people to be able to engage and learn about these things? And so, as Guy shared, Miracle Bible Way Church of Christ in in Macon, Georgia, is um, the foundation for me asking all the questions that I did. And because of that, there are so many benefits that have not only helped conversation with Tony Mobley, but has helped that ministry. You know, just think about a small church that has had the opportunity of having a New York lighting director come and participate in live production. You know, to have an audio engineer from the Philippines support and encourage the membership and Conversation with Tony Mobley with being able to have good sound. You know, there is no limit to what we can do in technology. You know, a small group of people can now be able to do something that can impact the world. And so, again, you know, it's really about engaging with people, having genuine conversations, and talking about the things that can make our lives a little bit better. You know, I do have the audacity to share a little bit of um, faith components to Conversation with Tony Mobley. You know, I don't apologize for being an ordained minister, and from time to time having some of that leak into the conversations that I have on Conversation with Tony Mobley. But also, I want to have conversations with educators. I want to have conversations with these brilliant video production people who are part of the office hours converse community. And so there is just no limit to, you know, one of the things that we say about Conversation with Tony Mobley is that it's real conversations with real people, and everybody is an important person as far as I'm concerned in terms of having a conversation. And I hope that answers Peter's question.
It's perfect. Our next question actually brings up a topic that I wanted to talk to Laura about anyway, and she's got her hand raised at this one. Mike Muddy Schlegel, who was on the panel a couple of weeks ago out of Raleigh, North Carolina, wonders what are some of the most important lessons you've learned because of Conversations with Tony Mobley? And I'm going to turn to Laura first. Laura?
One of the best lessons that comes out of Conversations with Tony Mobley is that dare to dream. Number one, dare to dream and then find a way to make it happen. And the other thing too is it is amazing to log into Zoom. Zach is cutting from Queensland, Australia. Mickey's in the Philippines. I'm in Texas. Tony's in Georgia. Tlaloc is in New Mexico, but we're all in one place getting one thing accomplished. And but yeah, it's a dare to dream thing, and then find the pieces and build it.
Perfect. Guy, you wanted to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, the hosting part of this is something that until you do it, and Tony just nailed it again, it's one of those things where you got to be listening to your guest. You have to either say back what they said so that they understand that you're listening, because if you just cut them off or you change the question, you lose something there, and they might have just given you a nugget. And that's one of the things that I've learned not only from this show but from other shows that we've done in the morning show and the other evening shows. And it's a powerful aspect of actually coming on here and learning how to communicate, because if you just don't listen to your guest and you move on, they don't feel you're losing the connection. And so one of the things that I've learned is that connection. And then the other thing that keeps ringing in my ear about this is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And Tony cares, and other people in this community care. You know, it's one of those things where you go, hey, Mickey's doing this because he cares. You know, he may put up the front that he's just this audio expert guy, but he's a caring individual. And there's a lot of people like JJ who, even though they push buttons and whatnot, they really are caring people. And that's the great thing about this community is people are showing up. We're not getting paid here. We're helping amplify messages, and we love it because we're seeing the craft improve, and we're definitely getting the amplifying reach and storytelling and communication. So it's really cool to see what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I'm going to pull up a little bit of the curtain. Not a lot of you have been watching Office Hours for a long time. You put in perhaps dozens and dozens of questions. We have an incredibly experienced question manager here in Laura Thompson, and I wanted to push it back on Laura and say, when you see these flood of questions coming in for the main show or Conversations with Tony Mobley or anything else, what are some tips you can give people so that they make sure their questions are crafted well enough so that they can get on the show and get those magical votes? What have you seen over all your time helping?
Oh, wow. Bill, that's an amazing question. That's a deep and a wide subject. I think sometimes the more technical questions do better. And the more specific your question can be, the better the answer you're gonna, ask a better question, get a better answer. Other than that, it depends, because of the way our vote, we take the questions by the vote of our audience. It's kind of one of those things where the audience is rarely wrong about the votes.
Interesting. I've noticed in some of the other groups that I hang out in, you see these generic kind of, hey, what's the best microphone? And that's the whole question. And in every case, the first 5 people are going, that's way too broad a question. Nobody's going to answer that. The reason there are 100,000 different kinds of microphones out there is that they're all specific for certain kinds of things. And if you can't get your question into a position where somebody can get you a real experiential opinion about why you should pick this one versus the other one, they kind of fall apart there. Go ahead.
The only other thing I can add to that is links and questions don't always do well because the panelists don't always have time to look at the links. That would be the only other thing.
There's some good technical things. You say, take a look at this 3-hour video and tell me whether the lighting was really good through the whole thing. And I'm sorry, none of us have that kind of time to watch 3 hours before the show. Tlaluk, you wanted to get in on this.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick about this. I've learned more as a person up until this, working with Tony on this show. I've been more of a consumer of YouTube than somebody who would try to stream to it, or learning from Jeffrey Powers about brand accounts and the roles that you have, and the going live and all those things, and even sort of looking to see, is it possible to become monetized? Oh no, it's not really possible to become monetized until you have I think 3,000 watch hours in a single year. So you need a lot of watch hours to become monetized, or
so
something
there's
like that.
Details about the way the thing really functions that people who are just looking at it from the outside don't understand. And getting deeper, you can figure those things out.
It's been really interesting to see that part of the equation, that you look, as a consumer of YouTube, you look at these people who are making a living doing it, and then you see how much effort goes into doing this kind of thing and building a channel, and how incredible it is that they can even make a living at it, because it must take so much work.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it looks sometimes. You just see you see the tip of the iceberg. You see the people who have hundreds of millions of subscribers, and you don't realize what it took to get there. Let's go to our next question. Florence Donald in Silver Spring, Maryland, wonders, what is one aspect of the Conversations with Tony Mobley show that you would improve? And we're going to start with Tlaloc.
I need to work more on figuring out how to onboard volunteers. The show tends to be right on the final orchestra dress night of opera, and so having a deep bench is really important to the longevity of the show. So I need to work on how to do that, and how to keep it moving in that sense, so that there's always somebody who can be training, and et cetera. That's the biggest one for me.
Laura, what's your sticking point? Whoops, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's all kind of, without knowing it, kind of stole my answer, but yeah, I'd like to get more people involved.
Okay. Guy Cochran?
Yeah, from a reach perspective, there is something about certain words that are used that you can amplify those words by putting it into transcription software and then putting it on your own website. And whether or not that would work for this show, I'm not 100% certain, but I really want to see it done with the Office Hours show in general. This comes from this company called Wistia, who's figured out how to inject transcripts below videos and then get the robots from Google to crawl them. And so to amplify his reach a little bit more would be amazing, to get this new component that Wistia has added, which is this ability to get the what did they say, 800 million ChatGPT users, that when you say words, it's now LLM friendly. So these words can go inside of there. And it's a long haul approach because you got to get some authority and you got to get these robots scanning. So office hours itself will get that kind of reach. But the other thing that I really wanted to show was this one that was announced from Andy Carluccio this morning, which is Zoom at ISE announced this new enhanced media add-on, which is 1080p 60 at a higher bitrate. It does cost a little bit of money, but I'm excited to see how great Tony looks with his lighting and his camera. And this is something that's going to be spectacular for a number of productions, but this just came out this morning. You could see on this LinkedIn post, it's 8 hours old. Enhanced media add-on coming this month to Zoom, and you'll be able to buy it in the add-on as an add-on in March from the store. Otherwise, contact your rep, and that's one of the things that I would love to see. I can't wait to see it on Tony's show.
I got a note to Tony. Did you want to address this, or is that note not prevalent here? I guess not. All right. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No, this is the first time I'm hearing about what Zoom has done.
Well, let's dive into our next question then. Peter Sargent in Round Rock, Texas is up with this one. At a purely technical level, what's the back end of this show? mimoLive, vMix, Blackmagic design hardware, mix of components? What are we doing? So Tlaluk's going to take us through what the current state of conversations with Tony Mobley is.
Well, currently we're on mimoLive, and we're using the Zoom integration in mimoLive. So we bring the mimoLive integration into the meeting, and we pull outputs from the one guest, or up to 6, Tony, or 5 guests. 6 guests, what we've done. And then that's on a M4 Mac Mini, and then we have an M1 that we control it from, and we have people remote into those machines and do the work from afar as the show gets prepared and then runs.
Fair enough. That's what happens on the Conversation with Tony Mobley show. Tonight, we are actually on a different platform. Our Tuesday nights is the test bed for what used to be called VizVector. I think now it's TriCaster. So this is going through a TriCaster hardware system out into the Zoom injection point and off into the web that way. We've done that by design because we're asked so many different questions about so many different technological platforms and pipelines for getting shows on the web that I think Alex decided early on that we wanted to be familiar with everything. So different shows on our platform tend to come through different pipelines of hardware and software. And by virtue of doing that, we try to keep up with the entire state of what is currently flexible, what is currently state of the art, what gives us something that's easy to work with, what are causing problems, and if it caused problems 3 months ago, have they fixed something and it's no longer causing problems? That kind of thing happens all the time in a constantly shifting technical environment. So just some thoughts about what you see tonight versus what you see on the other shows on our distribution platform. Let's get to our next question. It's another one from Mike Muddy Schlegel in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Mike this time wonders, what advice do you have conducting valuable and interesting guest interviews? You do such a great job in your conversations. So Tony, do you want to weigh in on this? Because you've always been such an excellent interviewer. What are your tips?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that make sure that your guests feel comfortable. There is not going to be any gotcha moments or anything like that in conversation with Tony Mobley. It's sincerely an opportunity to have a conversation. That's what I'm about. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share information that people may not normally have access to, be it, educators sharing information, musicians, artists, you name it. We've had conversation with opera performers and workers, professionals. We just try to make sure that everybody is comfortable and that it's a relaxing conversation. That is what we push. That's what we try to have. and we've had some, some great conversations with amazing people all over the world. And I have to say, he probably wouldn't be happy with me saying this, but Mickey Macature was in my ear, and I know he's working on the Olympics right now, and I was about to cry. So I just wanted to say thank you, Mickey, for what you have done and what you continue to do. I appreciate you.
I think one of the things that have kept everybody around this is the unbelievable quality of people who have been attracted to this show through the course of the 5 years we've been on. And Mickey is certainly one of those people that I value intensely, the friendship that we built over the course of these 5 years, and it's just amazing. All right, we're going to go on to the next question here. Tlaloc Lopez Waterman on the panel in Galisteo, New Mexico says, Tony, what have you learned by starting a project like this?
I think the most important thing that I learned is that I I just wanted to try it. I wanted to do it, and I didn't have I didn't have the resources to do it, but I wanted to do it anyway. And one of the things that I found was, because I had the desire to do it, right now, I'm probably the only person that I know that's serious about doing a show and is using an old iPhone as their primary camera. I don't know
You look
anybody else.
great.
I don't know anybody else that's doing that. And I took it from the position that I wanted to do it, and so I had that 999 microphone, and I'll share that someone donated this microphone that you're seeing. It was donated to me because they wanted me to have a better microphone. They thought that it was important. And so when you have people that, want to support you in what you're doing, but I think the most important thing for me was that even though I know I wasn't going to have the best camera, I wasn't going to have the best audio, I wasn't going to have, the best scenery or background, I wanted to do it. And my wife was patient enough to allow me to do it in our living room for several years. And so finally, when my adult sons moved out, um, my friend Clark Lopez Waterman made the decision, because I wasn't physically able to do anything about it, to move my entire setup into my one of my son's bedroom, and he made that sacrifice to come in. Not only moved the setup here, he also built the bookcase that is behind me. So um, I think the most important thing that I learned is that you give your best effort, and people will support you.
I think we can leave that right where it is because it's a perfect message. We got a couple more questions to get to before we finish things up, and we've got about another 5 minutes here. So let's go to Dave Kaufman in Vancouver, British Columbia. His next question is about it's difficult for me at least to understand show flow without diagrams. Does anyone share their setups graphically? And I don't know if Tony knows that much about this. I know that on shows that I have been in, one of the things we have often done, maybe not on the main show, we've done that a couple of times, particularly back when we were having second hours, but in after hours, there's a lot of that kind of thing that gets passed around. And for those of you who might be watching the show for the first time and don't know, even though these shows come on at a particular time and last a particular amount of time, there's that whole group in after hours that gather together really for the sole purpose of helping each other answer technical problems. And I've seen a lot of flow diagrams, equipment diagrams, really extraordinarily detailed breakdowns of how things are done. I don't know if anyone's ever done that for Conversations with Tony Mobley. Tlaloc, do you know if there's any kind of a graphic layout of what goes into what?
There isn't.
Okay.
And so we, it was interesting when Mickey started to come aboard and he started asking me questions about how we did things, and I had to say, well, this is what we do. And he had to grimace and say, well, you should do it this way instead.
Well, again,
So,
nobody was paying anybody. We were all volunteers and doing the best we can. So
but
it's
that
great.
doesn't mean just because we're not getting paid that we shouldn't strive to do a really good job.
No, and that's one of the
so,
things a lot of us have learned is how to take it that next level of professionalism just based on the fact that people here do that and are willing to share how they do that, which to me is one of the miracles of the whole office hours system. We have one more question.
In the office,
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to get this in here, but it's super important to me because the office hours experiment gives us the potential opportunity to work alongside incredible people that have a lot of skill and experience and rigor. And so, I can do that. I have that skill and experience and rigor in a different field, and I'm hopefully can give that over to folks about lighting and about theater and about DMX. But in working on conversations with Tony Mobley, I was able to do something that I don't have as much experience with, and therefore I could become enriched by the people that came in to help and the people that helped build this. So I think that's what's really important about this group.
Absolutely. I want to try to end on time today because we haven't done that in quite a bit of time. So I'm going to say a couple of thank yous. We've got a lot of thank yous. First and foremost, to everybody who came to be on the panel today to talk about this. And the top of that heap is Tony Mobley. Just thank you, Tony, for being who you are, for having come here with your openness. You've been so impressive to me as just an individual. I mean, there were a lot of times when I remember seeing you in something where I thought, yeah, Tony's a little bit out of his depth there. And I resonated with that because that's how I felt many, many times coming into the back end of office hours, realizing that the people around me knew tons more than I did. And I felt like an absolute beginner, maybe not even getting the language right, but somehow the spirit that you presented to everybody, even when you confronted things that were beyond your current ability, that's what resonated for me, because I kept thinking, if Tony can do that and everybody will elevate him to a level where he's comfortable doing these complicated technical things, then surely there's a place for me to be here as well. And I hope we never lose that spirit in the whole office hours team. There are, speaking of the team, remember this is not just one show, it's a bunch of shows. Tomorrow, Wednesday, is our audio-focused morning show featuring a panel of audio experts. If you have any questions about how audio works in any respect, come to the show tomorrow, and we cure a lot of those holes in your knowledge. And on Thursday, as always, the Rundown with David Paskin, a deep dive into technology questions. That's at 6 p.m. Pacific. So the morning show tomorrow, the evening show on Thursday. And that's going to kind of wrap things up for us. Thank you all for being a part of this particular Tuesday Focus show. We will be back next week with another one. Until we see you the next time, watch the credit roll that goes by. These are some of the people who are working like the ones you're seeing in the panel do on Tony's show. These are the people working on this show tonight, and we want to give them credit and potential. Our Tlaloc Traversal, which we've been doing on almost every show now for years, and we were lucky enough to have Tlaloc on the panel today, named for him, is 9,000 miles. That's how far you would have had to travel to get the answers to the questions you got today. That's 15,000 kilometers, 74 million bananas for scale. Watch the crew credits in the crawl, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.